The overriding goal here is not a ceasefire deal. Yes, there's been words of protest and people are upset, but what do words matter anymore, especially after 2 years of genocide? Whether you're a U.S. ally or not, you're expendable. It's Israel first, and all the other client states are of secondary.
Aaron Maté recently explained what Israel's actual goal is, as Americans are inundated with the idea from the legacy media that they're just trying to get the hostages back. Well, not only is that false, but Aaron Maté explains why the hostage negotiators were recently killed in Qatar by the Israeli government. Let's take a look at this. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
I mean, couldn't you make the argument, and maybe you just did, that Trump personally lured Hamas to these negotiations by saying, here's our highest and best deal, take it or leave it?
Absolutely. But that's what I think happened. If you look at the timeline, it's impossible to come to a different conclusion, given how close Trump has been with Israel at every single juncture. Recall also that back in March, after Israel broke the ceasefire, imposed a starvation siege, Trump then made a direct appeal to Hamas through his so-called hostage envoy, Adam Boehler, and said, if you free Israeli-American soldier Adon Alexander, we'll do our best to lift the blockade of Gaza, and we'll also, push for good faith negotiations to end Israel's mass murder campaign. Hamas, as an act of goodwill, released Adon Alexander, and Trump did nothing in return. He only increased his support for Israel's starvation siege and mass murder rampage inside of Gaza. So Trump has a long record of this now. He's played Hamas before, and it looks like he played Hamas again.
Notice that this matches what Trump and Netanyahu did in Iran too, where Trump and the U.S. delegation headed by Steve Witkoff was negotiating supposedly with Iran over curtailing its nuclear program. But, sacrifice that for the sake of a sneak attack by Netanyahu that took out targets through this sneak attack that Trump supported. The goalposts were moving. First, Trump said, hey, this is just Israel. It's not us. Then, oh, wait, we are supplying Israel with arms. Oh, wait, we are bombing Iran and getting away with atrocities on behalf of Israel against a country that has nothing to do with our national security. That's what happened there. That's what's happening here. So, yeah, there was a sneak attack to take out diplomats trying to negotiate a ceasefire to get the hostages back, but Netanyahu doesn't actually want them back because they serve as a pretext for the Greater Israel Project and the occupation of Gaza.
Tell me if you think this denial is credible. It's about 40 seconds long. You'll see Trump with the Vice President of the United States, the Secretary of Defense, and the Secretary of State standing behind him like mannequins, smiling at his snarky one-liner. One wonders what they do for a living, or what he thinks they do, that they can stand behind him when he gives these pressers. Nevertheless, tell me if you think his denial is credible. Cut number 16.
An Israeli strike earlier today.
Well, I'm not thrilled. I'm not thrilled about it. I don't have to do that. I'm not thrilled about the whole situation. It's not a good situation. But I will say this, we want the hostages back, but we are not thrilled about the way that went down today.
He's only saying that because Qatar is ostensibly an ally of the United States and ostensibly has decent relationship with Israel too. Remember, Qatar is the middleman that Netanyahu used to fund Hamas. Actually, that's where the money flowed through. The $1.8 billion that Netanyahu funneled into Hamas with the strategy of that destabilizing the Palestinians. So that's the only reason Trump is saying this. I don't think he's genuinely upset about that. I think it was part of Trump and Netanyahu's collaborative plan.
Are you in advance, Mr. President? Did Israel tell you in advance?
No.
So you were caught by surprise, sir?
I'm never surprised by anything, especially when it comes to the Middle East.
How did you learn about this happening?
I'll be giving a full statement tomorrow, but I would tell you this. I was very unhappy about it, very unhappy about every aspect, and we got to get the hostages back. But I was very unhappy about the way that went down.
You want the hostages back. The worst way you can handle the situation is to have them be bombed by Israel. And that part at the end, I actually, believe him on that one part where he said he always believes what happens in the Middle East because he's part of it. He's part of the formulation of the empire building scheme in the Middle East with Israel.
I think his no and nope were credible at all. Were you surprised by it? Instead of saying no or yes, he said, I'm not surprised by anything. Cue laughter, the vice president, laughter, the secretary of defense. Rubio's on the other side of Hegseth there in another camera angle. You can't see it from this one. Did you find him credible?
No. But the reason why he had to throw out some words of regret, I'm not happy about this, I'm not thrilled, is because Qatar is a U.S. ally. There's a U.S. military base there hosting 10,000 U.S. soldiers. And by the way, did that air base activate its air defenses when 10 Israeli warplanes entered Qatari airspace? No, because the obvious reason is that Trump and the U.S. were in on this. And that's why their air defenses weren't activated.
Well, was Doha in on it? Did they know that the planes were coming and that their air defenses that they rely on wouldn't work?
Some people can certainly, some people have speculated that. I mean, Doha has made the decision to host a U.S. military base, so basically putting them in the realm like Israel being a U.S. client state. So people will speculate that Doha was in on it.
That's interesting. If a country permits tacitly or just looks the other way at a strike taking place in its own country, that's about the most treasonous behavior imaginable if you're part of that government. But, these clandestine schemes that happen like that are part of the new American foreign policy regimen, right? And the campaigns that it gets embroiled in, like this strike against those negotiators.
I haven't seen evidence to support it, so I can't go that far. But just by virtue of deciding to be a U.S. proxy, hosting a U.S. military base, hosting military assets that are used to facilitate, directly or indirectly, Israel's genocide in Gaza. In that respect, the Qatari government is complicit, and but that's something for the Qatari people to decide on. Trump has certainly sent a message. Trump has certainly sent a message that whether you're a U.S. ally or not, you're expendable. It's Israel first, and all the other client states are of secondary importance to the point where the U.S. will facilitate an act of aggression on their territory if that's in Israel's interests.
Yeah, this is true. I hate to say, Israel has attacked 7 of its neighbors since October 7th, trying to expand the West Bank settlements in Syria and Lebanon, attacking Iran, assassinating leadership of Yemen. It's also absurd, and now they're bombing Qatar and Doha to take out the only route that would secure the hostages. Again, Netanyahu doesn't actually want the hostages back. They talk about that endlessly as a propaganda tool to kind of justify the atrocities that are going on in Gaza that a lot of Americans are really turning away from any kind of support for now. Thankfully, not enough, but some are. And they don't want to get them back because that allows him to have a justification, a propagandistic justification to do that.
Was the government of Qatar used by Netanyahu to funnel money to Hamas when he was promoting and funding Hamas?
Yes, they were. Yes, they were. That was the open policy. I mean, for Netanyahu, the aim was very clear. He wanted to prop up Hamas because he wanted to use the international reputation of Hamas as a militant group, as a intractable organization you can't negotiate with. He wanted to use that to basically undermine any prospects of a Palestinian state. That's sort of at the heart of Israeli strategy, to keep Gaza on the West Bank physically and politically divided. So you have a sort of collaborationist and a corrupt, ineffective Palestinian Authority, and you have Hamas in Gaza, which is known as being more extreme, even though in recent years Hamas tried to moderate its positions, it changed its charter. It tried to even endorse nonviolent protest, the Great March of Return in 2018, which Israel responded to by gunning tens of thousands of innocent Palestinians protesting nonviolently down with U.S.-made weapons. So this has all been a part of Netanyahu's strategy with U.S. support, yes, to prop up Hamas in Gaza. And he thought before October 7th that they were happy to play that role of just having control over Gaza while still not offering Israel any armed resistance. And of course, October 7th shattered that.
Yeah, I hate to say he's totally right about this. The BB Files documentary has Netanyahu caught on film talking about this, saying, hey, the theory is from the Godfather movie, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. And hey, we control the height of the flames. This is going to prevent and preclude the possibility of a Palestinian state. I hate to say that's worked. And it's been widely reported not only in Israeli media, but also in U.S. media, but totally shoved under the rug in modern narratives, especially after October 7th. Even though on October 8th, the Times of Israel printed a big story about this, about Netanyahu's historical financial support for Hamas. So this is well established.
Has there been any significant geopolitical response from heads of state over this?
Not that I've seen. No, I mean, the Gulf states will voice words of protest, but they're all in the pocket of the U.S. I mean, they all pretty much host U.S. military bases. The UAE is a part of the Abraham Accords with Israel, which essentially normalizes with Israel while asking Israel to do nothing for Palestinians, which previously had long been a stumbling block. So, yes, there's been words of protest and people are upset, but what do words matter anymore, especially after 2 years of genocide?
Yeah, Bahrain too, and the U.S. pays off both Egypt and Jordan not to invade Israel. I think the U.S. pays Egypt something like $1.3 billion a year just to not go to war with Israel. So often when we talk about the absurd amounts of U.S. aid that go to Israel and flow into Netanyahu's coffers, it's not even including that other money, that ancillary money that's paid to Israel's neighbors just not to invade them, to pay them off. So he's right about having the Gulf states in the U.S. pocket to do nothing to Israel while Israel gets open season on bombing its neighbors and trying to expand its borders. Despite the fact it's the only nuclear power in the region, too, by the way. They have a secret nuclear weapons program developed in the 60s, much to the chagrin of JFK, who tried to stop it. He was assassinated a few months after he tried to stop it. Let's not ask questions about that, but that's the truth.
This 100-word document offering Trump's proposals, I'm chuckling because I thought that Max was putting a little spin on it when he said 100 words, but it was 100 words. It sounds like Netanyahu dictated it to Trump. I mean, it was written in a very truncated way, as if he wrote it down on the back of a napkin in a bar.
It was disclosed by Dropsite News, which quoted a senior Hamas official saying that this reads like it was written by Israel, because basically it was calling on Hamas to give up all the remaining captives in exchange for a 60-day ceasefire, but there would be no guarantee that the genocide would end. And there was some unspecified pledge of more humanitarian aid, but that pledge has been made many, many times. And of course, people of Gaza are still living under a starvation siege. And
yeah, and it's not only that, they've drawn back the aid from 400 aid stations to 4, only 2 of which are open on any singular day, and when they are open, it's 15 minutes of distribution of food, and they don't distribute water, which, by the way, the food is requiring water to be prepared too, by the way, because of this starvation blockade, because of 3.5 months ago when they imposed that blockade against UN aid, monopolized it under the GHF, and thankfully we have patriot whistleblowers like Anthony Aguilar, the former Green Beret, to blow the roof off the madness going on in that on Tucker Carlson's program a few weeks ago.
The U.S. stance, it's impossible to keep track of because it keeps shifting. For a while, the U.S. and Israel were only saying there could be a partial ceasefire deal. Then they started demanding that there be a full ceasefire deal. And whenever Hamas offers its acceptance, according to one Qatari official, the latest Hamas acceptance met 98% of Steve Witkoff's demands. Even when that happens, U.S. and Israel changed their stance because basically the overriding goal here is not a ceasefire deal. And Hamas, I think, made a strategic mistake in thinking that Israel cared about saving its own people. Israel showed that by killing its own people on October 7th with the Hannibal Directive, and it's shown that since by refusing all ceasefire, or all but one ceasefire opportunities, all but 2 ceasefire opportunities to continue its mass murder in Gaza. And their strategy was laid out right after October 7th. There's an Israeli document, intelligence ministry document from October 13th, not even a week after October 7th. It said, our options in Gaza are threefold. And the optimal option is to displace most of the Palestinians into the Sinai Desert. And that's the strategy that they're still pursuing today.
Yeah, it literally is. They don't even beat around the bush sometimes. They've driven most of the Palestinians in Gaza down to the south near Rafah, where Gaza City has been made into what's called the apocalypse zone. That's what Anthony Aguilar called it. And they're doing everything to make it uninhabitable with a goal of pushing the Palestinians south and hopefully into Sinai in the dreams of Netanyahu and Ben-Gvir and Israel Katz. And if you listen to them, they're building a concentration camp, by the way, in the ruins where Rafah once stood. It was called a humanitarian city originally by Katz, but, you know, there's no escaping the fact that this is reminiscent of concentration camps during the Holocaust. And you have people like Ehud Olmert and Yair Golan, opposition political leaders in Israel, condemning it as such, calling it, yes, this is a concentration camp, and yes, this is inhumane to the core, and that's Israeli oppositional leaders. So this is just a preposterous strategy. He mentioned the Hannibal Directive. I just want to elaborate on that because some of my viewers might not know what that is. What that is was what we know is disclosed from whistleblowers that were hostages on October 7th, but have since been released, went back to Israel and said, hey, you know, when we were being captured, we were getting orders from our commanders to kill as many people as we could that were Israelis, such that they could not become hostages. And that seems to account for at least several dozen people that were killed on October 7th of that 1,200 number or so, maybe several hundred. So that's where that comes from, a completely maniacal order given to prevent hostages. So that's where we are now. USA to Israel is terrible, and the United States is tied to the hip of Israel, regardless of what it does, regardless of who it assassinates, regardless of all the propaganda they spew about trying to get the hostages back, but yet just killing the diplomatic party that could, you know, arrange for the release of the hostages. They need that on the table to serve as war justification, just as Netanyahu needed the JCPOA to be shredded with Iran to get away with putting regime change on the table. The JCPOA was that agreement that normalized relations with the United States for about 3 years. It's still in place with European partners, just Trump tore up in his first term the US part of that. And by having that torn up, it was a gift to Netanyahu where regime change could be justified now. Like, we can bomb Iran now. And they're going to bring this back up. They're going to start talking about bombing Iran again with the help of the United States. Some Israeli officials have already done that recently. So we'll have to see where that goes. But I do want to hear from you. Let me know down below, is Aaron Maté right? Is Israel's real goal not to get the hostages back and that just to be a propaganda tool? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to Judge Napolitano 2. Awesome interview, and please consider becoming a YouTube member. If you click the join button below, you can help support my channel, and in return I'll give you access to all of my videos before they go live to the general public on YouTube. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.